All right, welcome to the sports page of WSAV.com. I'm Greg Talbott, and thanks for joining us for the newest edition of WSAV Sports Now. We are here now to break down the season finale of The Bachelorette from last night. To do that, I'm joined by Ben Keck. Is that not what we're doing?
It's not what we're doing today. You know, I've never watched that ever. I feel like I'm not.
It's okay to have a little bit of junk food.
I'm asleep then. That's my excuse now.
That's true.
I'm asleep now.
I'm surprised your wife doesn't make you watch that.
Nah, she didn't watch it either.
Oh, it's a great show.
Nope.
If you want to talk about the season finale of The Bachelorette with me, I can't find anyone at work to do it, so I don't know what that says about me. Tweet at me, at Greg Talbott on Twitter. If you want to talk about Pirates baseball, at Ben Katko on Twitter.
At WSAV Ben K.
All right, so if we're not going to indulge me and talk about the season finale of The Bachelorette here today, we're going to talk about sports, and to do that, we're going to start with what is coming up on Friday, and college football is right around the corner, Ben. Both Georgia and Georgia Southern opening fall camp August 2nd. UGA a little bit later in the day. Georgia Southern takes to the beautiful banks of beautiful Eagle Creek at 8 a.m. on Friday out in Statesboro. So briefly, I want to talk to you about, before we get into what to expect at a fall camp for both of these teams, I want to talk about how this is the first time in a while that I think we are talking about Georgia and Georgia Southern in the decently same light and what we're expecting out of them this season. Both of them had phenomenal seasons in 2018.
Agreed.
Comparatively. Now, Georgia didn't make the national championship game like they did 2 years ago. They missed out on the college football playoff by basically one game, and they had to play the Sugar Bowl against Texas. Georgia Southern, huge 10-win season, bowl game win. So both teams, in my mind, are kind of similar. They're bringing back every significant coach. They're bringing back most significant players, although a little bit less for Georgia on that regard because they lost a lot of their offense. This is a season of hopeful for both teams the way I view it. This is a season of potential breakthroughs. Georgia Southern is looking to go from a 9-win regular season, 10-win if you include the bowl game, to winning the Sun Belt Conference, at least winning the Eastern Division against Troy and App State. Certainly against Georgia State. And for Georgia, they're looking for another breakthrough. This is kind of their last chance, I think. Not their last chance. Their last chance with Jake Fromm and a lot of those kids in that class because he's going to go probably as the number 1, number 2 quarterback taken in next year's NFL draft. So my view is that this is a season of breakthroughs for both teams. What do you think? I
would agree with you, and I agree that both teams have a lot of their key pieces coming back, coaches, players, that sort of thing. Then you would expect, if that's the case, you would expect them to replicate what happened last season, but your hope is that they would do better anyway. You know, you can replicate last season if you won a national championship, that's fine, but neither team obviously did that. So they need to, if they want to have a better year, they need to have a better year, if that makes sense. They need to go out and win one more game, especially for Georgia. I mean, Georgia they're this close, you know. Every year, the last couple of years, they're this close. There's something holding them back. I don't know if...
Man, they should have won that. I mean, I'll say it now that it's not too recent for Georgia. They should have won. I'm not sure if they blew that national championship game, but they should have won that national championship game.
I just feel like, you know, we can sit here and we can talk about national championships and how well teams performed and didn't perform, but that's one of those few times in sports where it's so hard for you to analyze exactly as you would any other game because there's so many other factors.
And that was a wild game too. That's what people forget. That was a wild game.
And it's just that you never know what's going on. I mean, that's a whole other level. I mean, that is the Super Bowl of college athletics, is playing in the national championship. And I would imagine that, I mean, your nerves are on another level. Your preparation is on another level. If your preparation isn't better than usual, you're going to get beat. It's just, I think it's so hard to sit here as guys who are sports fans and analyze exactly what we think happened there. I mean, we'll never know anyway. But like I said, they're so close. They are a play or two away from being there, but I don't know if it's just the nature of the SEC that's holding them back, that every week is such a grind, that it's never easy in the SEC. No. It's not, there is no team that you're like, yeah, they'll just, you know.
Well, it's easier if you're Clemson to roll through your ACC schedule than the SEC East, certainly.
Right, and for teams that are in these positions where that is the case for them, like Clemson, you know, the ACC is not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, the ACC lends itself to an easier schedule for Clemson than the SEC ever will for Georgia. It's just been that way forever. And I would imagine that stays the same.
Yeah, no question. So let's start locally and then expand. So let's start with Georgia Southern and what to expect on Friday. out on the beautiful banks of Eagle Creek. So I guess I'll break the news here. Not that it's any significant breaking news. I am going back to broadcast another season of Georgia Southern football games on ESPN
Congratulations.
this year. Thank you. Very excited about that. So consider me your Georgia Southern insider, at least on the WSAV shows. So the thing you need to know about Georgia Southern is that they're bringing back every coach. Chad Lunsford, head coach, Bob DeBess, Scott Sloan, offensive and defensive coordinators. They all got pay raises because of how well they did last year. They got a couple transfers in, but most importantly, pretty much every significant player on this offense is back, with the exception of Wesley Fields, who is their RB1, their number one running back last year. However, he was better 2 years ago. He was better kind of backing up those stars when he was a sophomore. Little underwhelming. I feel comfortable saying that now, last year as a senior. So kind of underwhelming for Wesley Fields, but everyone is back. Shai Werts, quarterback, MVP of this team. I would have gone as far to say he should have won Offensive Player of the Year in the conference last year.
Okay.
Shai Werts is back. The running backs, it's kind of going to be three guys, all of whom have different skill sets, but who combined are going to be a nightmare if the offensive line holds up. You have Matt LaRoche. You have Logan Wright, who's the big boy, big bowling ball. And then most importantly, you have the Savannah native, Benedictine graduate, John Wesley Kennedy. He was an absolute star last year. They started him as a running back last year, kind of moved him into the slot midway through last season so they can pass to him. They can have him run the ball. He's kind of their offensive MVP do-it-all. And then they have a handful of their wide receivers back, most importantly. I think Darian Anderson, who was the one who went and caught deep balls last year, the other guys like Colby Ransom, Mark Machad, yada, yada, yada. So all of the pieces except Wesley Fields are back on offense, and that's huge because having all of them back, that allows Bob DeBess, their offensive coordinator, who only had the playbook maybe at 50% last year because it was his first year. They're expanding the playbook. They have the key players back. I think this is going to be a big step forward in camp for the offense.
That's a good formula, though, to have. That's a good situation to be in, that you have all these first-year guys to the system that you brought in last year, to be a part of this new coaching staff. And yeah, you can't really bust things open your first year. You just can't. I don't think you can
Especially with a triple option offense.
Exactly. I just don't think you can go as deep into that playbook as you really want to. And that's beneficial to everybody, I think, that you don't do that right away. But now that you've got, everybody's comfortable now. Everybody's been there long enough. Everybody's had enough time to go through the playbook to make the tweaks. The right guys are back that are familiar with the system already. Because you got to imagine, as a player, you've got new coaches coming in, new position coaches coming in to coach you away from what you've already known. Everybody brings their own style to the game. So I think those situations can only end in better results than the year before. That for Shai Werts to have this potentially whole offense at his fingertips, it might be a whole lot of fun out there in Statesboro this year. And I would say, like we've said before on this podcast, that, yeah, they open up with LSU. If I'm LSU, I'm not overlooking this team. And then
You better not, man. This is not a team to overlook in week one.
Georgia Southern is the type of team. They are built like the type of team. They're built better than the type of team that'll go somewhere and beat that big dog.
Yes.
You've seen these other teams that have gone on and done it, and a lot of times it's been they've had, a lucky bounce. You know what I'm saying? That things had kind of gone their way in certain situations. But I think Georgia Southern really, I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm not going to make that prediction. But I am saying that they are going to be very competitive. I think LSU might be a little bit surprised when Southern gets there. And then I think that would put Minnesota on their toes a little bit, knowing that at the very least this Southern team gave LSU a game, that these big teams are beatable by these teams like Georgia Southern, who are better than your average smaller Division I team that goes somewhere and beats somebody. They're built to be better than that.
Yeah, so what you're talking about, expanding the playbook, that is my big thing to watch in camp that opens up on Friday. So last year, like I said, the playbook got to about 55% with Bob DeBess. It's going to be more this year. On defense, they are losing a couple more guys. They've lost a couple of their linebackers. They lost a couple of their star safeties. They are bringing back, and this is what the one thing you don't need to watch, but I do want to notice it. They have not only the best 1-2 cornerback punch in the group of five, I would probably think they probably have one of the best 1-2 cornerback punches it's got to be top 20 in college football, regardless of Monkwavian Brinson and Kindle Vildor. Kindle Vildor is ranked the number 83 player in college football a couple weeks ago by Sports Illustrated. Monkwavian Brinson was an absolute stud last year, first team all Sun Belt Conference. So those two guys, you don't have to worry about them. They're the two best cornerbacks in the group of five, one of the very best combos in all of college football. I'll be interested to watch the linebackers.
Yep.
And I'll be interested to watch the safeties because there are a couple losses at safety. So my thought for that LSU game, which is true, is you need to really stop the run game and hope to force them to pass.
Because then
Sutton's
in a great situation.
So you can use that secondary,
Yeah.
right? So although as someone who's going to call games and watch this team all year, my eyes the first couple weeks, and especially in camp, my eyes are going to be on the linebackers and the safeties because that to me is the question mark, although the more important thing I would think leading into that week one game in camp, I really want to see the defensive line.
Yeah, well, especially if your model is to want to force teams out of the run and into the pass because you know you're so strong out there, that is definitely something to watch. You know, those 8 guys in the box, the 8 that could be in the box, those are the guys. Yeah, I would be interested to see how this works out for them because if they can come up with something sound in the middle that really does force teams to put balls in the air, Southern is going to have a lot of success this year.
Yeah. All right, so that's Georgia Southern. Now let's talk about Georgia. The number one thing that I want to see out of them in fall camp is a guy that we used to see here, Demetrius Robertson, who went to Savannah Christian, went to Cal for a year, realized he did not dig that system. Being from this part of the country, I'm a San Francisco, I'm a Bay Area native. I am not surprised that the life out there is significantly different than the life out here, and he might not have felt that was a great fit. Also, Cal, nothing against it. My grandma went to Cal. I have many family members who went to Cal. It's just, for him being a 5-star wide receiver prospect, always seemed like a borderline strange choice to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's coming back to Georgia. I think, considering Miko Hardman is gone, I would not be surprised, Ben, to see him actually become the number one target for Jake Fromm this year.
I mean, I think you're probably right, especially because you've got a kid who's a 5-star recruit anyway. And these recruiting websites and the pundits, they don't just hand out these 5 stars. I mean, most guys that get a 5-star rating really are a 5-star player. They just are.
I'm a 5-star man.
I would be
Always
interested
sunny.
to see how he produces and the way he produces, especially likely only getting the ball from Jake Fromm for 1 year. I mean, that's really, I mean, that's the truth here. I mean, Fromm will be going to the NFL. But for this kid to be able to get the ball 1 year in that system, he has a really great chance to make a big impact and a name for himself there. And I think you're right about him going to Cal. I think it's kind of a head scratcher that, you know, you as a 5-star recruit tend to have more schools at your beck and call. You can kind of have your pick, you know. You never know what's in somebody's mind. I'm not the type of guy to sit here and yell at the television screen or at Twitter when a kid makes a decision. He wants to go to Cal, whatever. He wanted to go there. He found something he liked there. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. Plus, he's in a better situation at Georgia. No offense to your family that went to Cal.
That's fine.
But he's in a better situation at Georgia.
Yeah, I'm not someone who can say definitively why he chose Cal over somewhere like a Georgia or an Alabama or a Clemson or whatever.
Yeah, try out the West Coast.
My guess is that being from Savannah, and I really enjoy living here. Obviously, I've been here going on almost 4 years. There's a reason I like it here. I think if you grew up here, I think the world might feel a little small. And I think the chance to go out to Berkeley, to San Francisco, to the West Coast, I think the chance to expand your world and play in a conference in the Pac-12 that is so pass heavy.
Yeah.
In 2017, 2018, 2019, I think my guess is that it felt to him like a fabulous chance to expand his world.
And who knows, maybe for him, you know, he was told a lot of things, promised a lot of things that,
Could be.
you know, you're going to come out here and you're going to play right away. We're not going to redshirt you.
He did play. He did play.
But perhaps it just, you know, yeah, you're right. It's pass heavy in the Pac-12, but perhaps it just didn't click.
Take, and that's okay.
And who cares?
And college football in 2019, who cares?
Right,
You can always
kids are-
transfer.
Yeah, running all over the place anyway, going wherever they want to go, and they're getting waivers to play right away, and that's fine. I mean, like I said, I'm not here to knock a kid for his decision where he wants to go and further his athletic and academic career. Do you, man? Wherever you want to go, do your thing. But I am saying that I do think he's in a better situation at Georgia.
Absolutely right. So that's what I am watching. I want to watch Demetrius. What are you thinking for UGA camp?
I mean, Jake Fromm has been a good, sound quarterback in that system for many years.
Dependable.
Like, you know what you're getting.
Yep.
There's no question about him.
Right.
What I really would like to see is that he kind of, making a name for himself would be the wrong thing to say, but taking his game up just a little bit more, just one more level, see if he's got that extra level in there, because this is going to be a draft class. I mean, I'm looking past the season, and I'm sure all these kids will tell you, no, the season is, I'm looking at this season right now, but they're looking ahead to where they're going to end up in their lives and going to the NFL. And he's being mentioned near the top of the draft and definitely near the top of the quarterback class. But this is a good quarterback class looking ahead to next year's draft. It's crowded, more so than it's been. I think there are more guys in that class that will likely turn into better NFL players than you've seen over the course of the last couple of years. But I think Jake Fromm is near the top of that pack. He takes his game up just one more notch. Not only is that good for Georgia, it's good for Jake Fromm too. The kid is going to make a ton of money in the league someday.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. He's going to make a ton of money. But he's got to get through this season at Georgia first. Could you imagine if he comes out and takes his game, it's already good, but he takes his game up just one more level, what he can do at that next level? Georgia's in great shape with him. Not a lot of schools have a guy that is around for that long, that is that invested in the system for that long, that's in a steady system. You know, he's rarely ever had to worry about any of his coaches leaving or anybody not being there for him. He's in a great situation personally. I would just be interested. I know it's the safe answer is to see what your elite quarterback does in camp, but I would like to see if he could take it up just one more level. That sounds like I'm greedy.
No, that's fine. That's
greedy.
That's what Georgia fans want, I think.
I think so.
All right, so let's see here. What else
do you want to talk about today?
That's what I was going to ask you, since we're not going to talk about the Bachelorette finale.
Yeah, we're not talking about the Bachelorette. My buddy tweeted me something this morning that I thought, it's an interesting question. Well, he just put it out in the universe, so of course I had to respond. But big shout out to my buddy Mark. He said on Twitter, he's an excellent school teacher, by the way.
Cool.
And he's having a baby. He and his wife, they're having a baby in September, so congratulations.
R.I.P. Sorry, congratulations.
NFL contracts should all be incentive-based with a standard guaranteed money per position. Example, a wide receiver makes $2 million guaranteed, but then makes money per reception, touchdown, so on and so forth. This would up competitiveness and knock out the ridiculousness of overpaid contracts like what Michael Thomas just got. You see that?
I did.
$100 million. 61's guaranteed.
I did see
That's crazy. That set a whole new bar for wide receivers. But all that aside, what do you think about that? You make a base salary for position and then base the rest of your money off an incentive.
I think it makes it almost impossible to deal with the reality of the fact that this is a salary cap league.
Right. This is totally just obviously a hypothetical situation.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this, so I know we've been trying to avoid philosophical Greg on this podcast the last couple of weeks.
Well, you weren't here last week.
You're actively asking me to do a thought experiment here in real time on television. So I tend to be a free market guy when it comes to people's labor in any realm, including sports. I tend to say you are worth what anyone is willing to pay you, and that you are worth the most that somebody is willing to pay you. And I think that eliminates the free market, although, again, we know that the NFL, because it's a salary cap league, is not free market. It's not Major League Baseball. You can't make as much as anyone is willing to pay you because there's a salary cap like the NBA, unfortunately. But I think there is something enjoyable to that idea if you are one of the people who thinks that it's not okay that athletes are making so much money.
Sure.
I tend to think, like I said, I'm a free market guy. I don't like the idea of anyone telling you what you can and can't make. I don't like the idea of the NFL, which is a cartel, telling you what you can and can't make. I don't like the idea of the state or federal government telling somebody what you can and cannot make. You are allowed to make as much as the invisible hand, economically, is willing to pay you. So I think if you are of the mind that people should only be making so much money, if that's your political leaning or your economic leaning to help fix things in this country or whatever have you, that's fine. I think I'm opposed to it in a moral way. I don't like the idea of anyone telling me what you can and can't make.
Would it make you play harder, though? Would it really drive you to be more competitive if you're like, great, you've got guys that are making $100 million, but if you knock their salary down, you're going to guarantee them $2 million. How much harder would that make you work if it was an incentive-based program? And
does it force you to play through injury, which might be unhealthy?
And would it be good for you internally to be competing? Of course, you're competing with and against your teammates. There's always another guy that's trying to take your job on your team. Would it be a toxic thing that you're like, well, suddenly you're not necessarily in it for the team? Maybe. Do you think it might breed that?
Yeah, I do, because the thing that jumps to my mind is if you're coming up on the end of the year and you haven't made as much money as you want to make, if you're a wide receiver or a running back, you are saying, yo, throw me the ball. I don't care that
I'm running all the way across the field.
I don't care that Antonio Brown is wide open. I need to make my money.
I need another $100,000.
No, exactly right.
But you're right about the injury stuff, I think. This is just some
of the
stuff.
I think it promotes playing through injury, which we were starting to learn in the NFL is really unhealthy.
Right. And some of the stuff I brought up with my buddy, we always have these conversations about stuff like this. We go back and forth about this kind of stuff. And my question to him was, well, what about injury compensation? If you're injured, your earning potential there is non-existent.
Right.
What do you do with that? One other thing I said is there a cap on what you can earn? Think about it. If
there already is.
Not that kind of cap. A cap on your incentive. Assume this is an incentive-based thing. Now, you get your base and incentives. Is there a cap on what you can earn? Because it makes it awfully hard, I think, for team ownership to budget correctly and be able to manage their finances correctly if you don't really know what everybody's making every year. This year I might make, $4 million with my incentives. Next year I might make 12. The year after, I might be injured and you might only give me $2 million. So my money's kind of all over the place. So that's some of the stuff I talked about with him.
I think it's a really interesting idea if you are of the persuasion that we need to worry about the money that people are making in the NFL. But if you are of that persuasion, I think it's a really interesting idea. I happen to not be of that persuasion, but I'm not judging.
Well, my buddy was saying, he came back at me, he also thought about injuries, and maybe you can prorate contracts that way, and caps would defeat the purpose of an incentive-based system because you do want to make as much.
Get rid of the cap.
Right, you'd have to get rid of that.
Right.
But he did say, and he did mention Antonio Brown. I knew AB would be the first person that one of us said in this situation. He said, I can see players like AB complain about how lack of touches is hurting his pay. So these are unintended consequences of the system, but I just think it's a cool conversation to have, given the state of the NFL right now, because every time somebody signs a new deal in the NFL, it's always the biggest deal that there's ever been in the NFL.
Right.
Like Michael Thomas is the highest paid wide receiver in the history of the NFL. Yesterday he wasn't. This morning when he woke up he wasn't. By lunchtime he is.
Yeah.
So what happens tomorrow to the next guy that's holding out?
I'm not sure your friend wants to hear about what I actually believe. I think
Should we save that for another time?
No, I can do this quickly. I'm of the belief that in every major sports league, and actually every business in this country, like I've told you, I hate the idea of any organization telling you what you are legally allowed and not allowed to make. I don't think we should be in the business of this country of anyone telling you how much money is too much for you to make if you are worth that to somebody in terms of the invisible hand. I have been in favor of abolishing the draft, and I have been in favor of eliminating all salary caps, because the evidence I have seen and the literature I have read leads me to believe that actually the NBA is the only league in which the idea of the salary cap actually promotes all the teams having a fair shot. The NFL, say what you will, the records tend to be pretty close among most of the teams in the league, but we tend to see the best teams year after year after year after year after year, regardless of the salary cap.
Right.
NBA, for some reason, it tends to promote parity. NFL, from what I've seen, really does not do that. So I think we should be in the business of letting people sign where they want. Basically, free agency for kids coming into the league. Are you okay with coming out of college and letting the National Association of Broadcasters tell you where you're going and how much money you can make?
Well, it depends where they were going to send me. No, I don't think so.
Grand Junction, Colorado, you're only allowed to make $23,000 a year?
I don't think it's going to. My first job, I made $16,500.
Right. No, but I mean, I know that it's an entertainment product, so it's not an apples to apples comparison. But I've always thought it's gross that we are sending these kids fresh out of college, sentencing them for 4 years to a city they probably don't want to live in, to a team that probably isn't very good.
And occasionally,
it's gross.
Occasionally, it's a fluke situation where there's a team that's drafting at the top of the draft that you're like, they're a pretty good team. Something happened last year. City's all right. I wouldn't mind going. The Giants, for instance.
Right.
You get drafted by the New York Giants or the Jets.
You're good, man.
You're great. You're going to New York City.
In Midtown Manhattan.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't want to bash the Cleveland fans out there, but they're
going to be good this year.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is you get a lot of these kids that are coming out of college. They are the best players in college, and suddenly you're like, well, going to Cleveland.
5 years.
You're going to be there 5 years.
Have the ball.
You might win 5 games.
Right.
Things are different in Cleveland now. They have had to, they have found a way to build and rebuild and hopefully make themselves more competitive in the league. I would love to see that. I would love to see Cleveland more competitive.
They're going to win 10 games this year?
I don't think they're going to win 10.
9?
8.
8 with Baker Mayfield and OBJ and that defensive line?
8-8.
All right.
I'm calling it 8-8.
We'll do over-unders before the season starts.
And we'll come back at the end of the season and tell you how I'm probably wrong. But, yeah, you're right. You get these kids that they're great in college, and then they go into the system, and it's like, but you're going here to a team that's only won 1 game in the last 12 years.
It's restrictive.
It's hard.
And
but
may I say, anti-American.
But you're compensated. The other side of the coin, you can say, well, you're handsomely compensated to play a kid's game. Up until
Aren't
Sam
we
Bradford.
compensated to
I have a lot of fun.
We have fun jobs. We're entertainers.
Sam Bradford, though, was the last guy that got one of those ridiculous #1 overall contracts, like $1 billion right away. So the NFL, in order to get a handle on that, did what they did and made basically every pick a slot value. You get X number of years for X number of dollars, and this is how it's going to work. And I think that system is beneficial to the teams because you get all these guys that end up being busts anyway, and then you're not, $80 million in the hole with them.
Right.
That's ideal for the guy who's signing the paychecks. But, it's the salary cap system. I'm so hot and cold on it, though.
It works in the NBA, so clearly doesn't work in the NFL.
It works in the NBA very interestingly because the NBA has found a way to just kind of spread that wealth as far as players go. Look at what's going on now after this NBA season just wrapped up. You moved all these players around that all took these max deals, got out of this place to go to that place. Every team has 2 guys. Now, every team's got 2.
That is because, rightfully so, a lot of the super teams actively, willfully broke up. I mean, you broke up.
Yeah.
Now, again, we saw back when LeBron and Wade and Bosh were in Miami that even when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, you can break that system by taking less money if you're a bunch of guys and really getting 3 or 4 stars in there like the Warriors have done.
You have to figure out what's most important to you.
Right. So it's a breakable system, but for some reason they're just less willing to break it in the NBA. I think, I don't think it would be a bad thing to eliminate the draft and salary cap.
A lot of these guys in the NBA, too, when they move on to get these max contracts, there's a really good chance that they have just left or recently left a team where they won a championship. So if you're feeling fulfilled in that part of your life, that like you've already got your championship, you feel great about that.
Get your money.
And you're chasing the money, do you? Go chase your money, go get your max deal, take home $140 million and call it a day. But all these leagues, it blows my mind how they all operate differently, and they've all come to different conclusions as to what they think is best for them. But really, the NBA, among them all, probably has the best system. It just
depends what you define the best system as.
It depends on, I think that's, everybody sees that a different way.
If you're talking about parity in every city from Memphis to New York having a chance to win, yeah.
Sure. And you're getting guys, when you do these max deals, you're getting guys that probably deserve that much money if you're of that school of thought that you want to pay guys, a whole bunch of money. They're not giving max deals to the 6th man off the bench that is doing 9 points a night. That's not happening. You're giving max deals to the LeBrons of the world and the Kawhis of the world and the Kyries of the world. Those guys are getting max deals. They've proven that they are better than average. They are better than average players. So their system, the NBA system, has figured out a way to, I think, reward those guys the right way. I don't know if the right way is the right way to say that. I don't know if that's correct. But then in Major League Baseball, I have a tough time not having a salary cap when I see
you're
guys.
You're a small market fan.
Right. I got the revenue sharing. It's all a mess for me in Pittsburgh because we can't afford those guys. Right. But you see the Phillies go out. They're right across on the other side of the state. You see the Phillies go out and give a ton of money to Bryce Harper, who is not even close to performing to that level, to the level that they have valued him at this year. They gave the man $300 and whatever million. He's batting like 255.
Well, you just got to be smarter. Look what the Oakland A's have done for the last 15 years.
But they've also not won a championship out of it. So everybody's got to.
It all depends what you think the right
system
is. I mean, and that's I mean, I tend to think that's up to someone's more moral compass and how they see the world, which eventually reflects their moral and political leanings, and that's a whole different conversation. But
that's a conversation not for us.
Yeah, that's not for us. That's for
but you know what,
WSAV Politics Now, coming in September.
Big ups to my friend
Just
Mark
kidding.
for this thoughtful conversation, because I've been thinking about this for a couple hours now, and I mean, it really took us down a road here. But at the end of the day, he said the benefit to this is ideally all players are giving 100%, which is probably true. Every player is probably giving 100%.
Especially in the NFL, they are. Yeah.
If you're making it incentive based, why on earth would you give anything less than 100%? If your performance dictates your pay in this hypothetical system.
How often do you watch an NFL game and go, that guy's slacking?
Well, never.
Almost never, right?
Never. I don't think I've ever said
I would
that.
actually say in basketball, that would actually fix a lot more than it would in football.
Yeah, probably. I could see where you would say that.
Yeah.
It'd probably get rid of the whole flopping thing.
Probably get rid of defense.
There would be no
If you
defense.
made defensive incentives for blocks and steals, it would change the NBA.
If you took away money for traveling, I guess they'd have to call traveling first.
That'd be funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's a thoughtful conversation to have. I appreciate that, because
That was good.
it gets you thinking a little bit. But I mean, and back to reality, there's not a chance that the NFL would ever do something. I mean, the CBA,
NFL Players Association
they would stop
laugh
that.
you out of the room, and
Right.
they would say, we're gonna get rid of this league before
We're going to take everybody and we're going to just start a different league.
send them to the XFL.
Yeah. Well, that starts next year. That could be fun.
Yes.
That could be a lot of fun.
Really good edition of WSAV
Oh, wait,
Sports
hold on.
Now.
Before we
have
go,
more?
before we
have
go,
more?
what do you think of that brawl last night? The Pirates and the Reds?
Great. I want one baseball fight per game like they do in hockey.
What an unbelievable situation. I mean, it happens every time the Reds and the Pirates get together, too.
Right.
They just don't like each other. They hate each other.
That really is a non-publicized rivalry because they're so close together, and those aren't major.
Well, they play like 21 times a year in the division.
It's not the Cardinals and the Cubs or the Giants and Dodgers or the Mets and the
Right.
Yankees or the Red Sox and the Yankees. But they are so close to each other.
Uh-huh.
I have always assumed that's a heated rivalry that never gets attention.
It took some time, I think, to get some attention, and I think definitely over the last couple of years it has taken off. And I think it kind of started to take off and get a little more traction when back in 2013, the Pirates made it to the wild card game, which was their first playoff appearance in like 21 years.
R.I.P.
Yeah, well, whatever. But the game is played in Pittsburgh. I was living in Cincinnati at the time, so the game was being played in Pittsburgh. So we were jabbing back and forth with each other, and that's the game where Johnny Cueto dropped the ball in the second inning on the mound. Dropped the ball, it rolled down. The fans kept chanting Cueto, Cueto. He got back up there. The very next pitch, he threw a beautiful fastball right down Main Street, and Russell Martin hit a ball that still hasn't landed yet. And I think that was really the turning point for that rivalry, because then fans were really into it a lot more. And the next season, people were jabbing at the Reds that were Pirates fans a little more than they usually would. And it's been back and forth since then. And then, emotions have just boiled on over. And this is the second bench clearing brawl they've had this season.
Good.
They're doing their thing, man. Plus, Yasiel Puig, dude wasn't even part of the team
Guy
last
got
night.
traded
He
midway through the game and still went in a fight, and it was incredible.
I'm not advocating for it, but this is, of course you are. This is the kind of stuff that, if baseball's trying to be more exciting, this is it.
Well, here's what's so funny, and this is a brief thing because I know we got to go. So I was on vacation last week. Obviously, I went to Portland, San Francisco, San Diego. Did my West Coast swing. I'm a West Coast guy. I think I went to 2 Giants games and 2 Padres games. I went to 4 baseball games. Mm-hmm. I think I'm changing my tune a little bit. Obviously, like we have said, outside of those major cities, we are in a place where baseball really is not a major part of our everyday lives.
Yeah.
I grew up in San Francisco when the Giants were good. I was growing up watching Barry Bonds play in person.
You
it was
got
incredible.
a championship every other year.
We did when I was in college. It was amazing. Point being, though, being back in those major cities where baseball matters to San Francisco, even when the Giants suck, which they're 500 this year and they're getting good. But in my Ubers, the Uber drivers are talking about the Giants. I sit down at lunch at a seafood place in San Francisco at the counter, and guys behind the counter are talking about the Giants. And I go to San Diego, and my college friends are going to Padres games. I wonder if maybe, like I've said on this program, the first couple weeks here, baseball is healthy inside the cities.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back. Baseball is really healthy inside the cities, but the immediacy with which it goes from mattering to not mattering. It's like once you leave those suburbs of the direct
it's like flipping a
cities,
light switch.
it couldn't matter less.
Yeah, but see, everybody's on the internet this morning talking about this fight. So obviously not condoning the fighting within baseball, but I think there is a desire for more excitement.
Yes.
And that's
Whatever
evidenced
cost.
by people all over the internet talking about this little scuffle today, which
Watch it, by the way. Go to Twitter and watch
it's something else. Last thing, there's some video some guy took out in right field last night at the Reds game.
Yeah,
You see this?
I did.
Where he informed the Reds right fielder that Yasiel Puig had been traded.
Puig got traded.
Yeah, they have a conversation about Yasiel Puig getting traded. So
Hilarious.
it's kind of cool. But that's the cool thing about baseball. You can get intimate like that when you're at a game. You know, players will, they'll talk to you about stuff like that. And you did something?
I was sitting behind the Giants dugout at third base at the San Diego game. Third baseman is Manny Machado.
It is.
For San Diego. And
It is.
we were sitting with a bachelor party right behind my family and I, and we were just laying into Machado all game.
Did he give it back?
In funny.
Yeah.
No, but what he would do is whenever we lobbed one out there that was like actually funny, there were a couple. I'm a good heckler. I landed a couple. of,
Good heck.
I did. I landed a couple lines that made everyone like laugh loudly, and he turned around and went, a little thumbs up.
See, that's
so,
cool.
Hey, Manny Machado, good sport.
Big shout out in case you're watching.
Anyways,
That's all I got today.
Yeah, good addition to WSAV Sports Now. Really quickly, Tyler for Bachelor, sorry Pilot Pete. For Ben Katko,
I have no idea.
I'm Greg Talbott. See you next week.